So I was in Australia a couple of weeks ago where I saw the new Civic Type R FN2R. It's a beautiful looking car, I'll tell you that. It's amazing. Kind of took my breath away. But that's when I realized that I have not driven a Civic Type R since the FD2R. That's a long time ago. And recently, I traveled to Thailand with Honda Malaysia. And before that, I had kind of seen the FK8R parked in their office, covered in dust. And that's where I reached out to them and told them, guys, I've not driven the FK8R. And they were basically shocked. And well, a couple of weeks went by and I just reached out to them and said, can I please drive the FK8R? And hence why this video. Because the FK8R is basically the first of the turbocharged Civic Type R. But before I get to that, let me tell you about how good of a time I had with the FD2R. Previously, before that, of course, I've already driven the DC5s, the EK9s. I've never driven the original DC2. I've never driven that. But I've driven the DC5s and the EK9Rs and all. But the FD2R, boy, it was a different driving experience. The engine on that thing, it was impossible to drive in third gear at 70 kilometers per hour, right? Like what I'm doing right now in the FK. It was impossible to do it in the FD, simply because it was an engine that was so high-strung that it was impossible to drive it slow. And that's a good thing. But the suspension on that thing was so stiff that if you had a little bit of fats hanging around your body, it will show you exactly where those fats were. That's how stiff the suspension on the FD2R was. But besides that, the FD2R was just an amazing driving machine. It was that slick shifting 6-speed gearbox coupled with that naturally aspirated engine was just glorious, to say the least. In fact, so much so, I had so much fun exploring the 8,000 RPM of the FD2R that I ended up spending 1,000 ringgit of fuel in just 1 week when I had that car. Yeah, the FD2R completely blew me away. So that's the benchmark that I have for the FK. I've been driving this for a few days now. Has it delivered? I would say yes, but it is a lot more matured than what the FD2R was. It's softer. I like the fact that it comes with adjustable suspension that goes with the 3 driving modes, electronic, of course. It has at the same time, it also either stiffens or lightens the steering wheel. It's a much more bigger, more comfortable machine, and is one that I think your family will forgive you for buying, especially if you have younger kids, because it's actually quite spacious. It's comfortable. I like the fact that it comes with Apple CarPlay, and it's quite refined at the same time. So, but as soon as the roads allow you to, it can actually turn to be quite a beast as well. I mean, 311 PS is just amazing. It's a nice, it lets you do stuff like that, Of course, being a turbocharged engine, so you have a lot of torque to rely on. So you can actually comfortably cruise in third or fourth gear, like I'm doing right now. And I also like the fact that it comes with a gear indicator, so I know exactly which gear that I'm always in. And besides all of that, I like this Jekyll and Hyde character because I can actually take it easy. But when I want to, it has this automatic rev match feature, which I first experienced in the Nissan 370. And I can do stuff like this. In third gear going uphill, easy there's so much of torque for me to rely on, and this rev match system just makes you feel like a bloody driving hero, right? It's perhaps a good thing that these cars are in front of me driving really slow, because otherwise I would have met these walls. Because this car makes you want to explore its limits. And when the road allows you to, just like it does now, yeah. It's just such an amazing machine, and the grip levels on this thing is just, oh. Anyway, my point over here being that this is still a driver's machine. The Civic Type R has not lost its character, which brings me to the point of this video. The Civic Type R FK8R is a future classic. I mean, with electrification, with the dumbing down of driving pleasure, I mean, all of these car makers out there that so-called build driver's machines, they still do not let you engage with a car just like the Civic Type R does. And the FK8R, I believe, is still the ultimate, well, at least for a front-wheel drive JDM machine, is still an ultimate driving machine, because it offers so much fun. And then at the same time, because of its Jekyll and Hyde character, it's actually quite comfortable as well. You can get one now for about between $250, $280, maybe even slightly less. And I think if you are in the market for one, then bloody hell, get it. Don't think twice, just go on and get it. Excuse me. Let's just explore this. Dog steer. Public roads, Keshi, public roads. But that's the type of stuff that you can do with amazing driving machines such as this, and why you get a 6-speed manual. Which, I have to tell you this story, right? Recently, Toyota Malaysia introduced all of its GR variants, right? So sports cars, there was the GR Supra, GR Corolla, the 86, all of them were manuals. But you know what? With all these influencers and all these YouTubers and such, there were only perhaps a handful of people that could drive a manual. Guys, grow up. Grow those two things that are hanging between your legs. Learn how to drive a manual. This is your basic survivability. World comes to an end tomorrow, unlikely, but yes, world comes to an end tomorrow and your only chance is, I don't know, an old school Mitsubishi Pajero manual. That is going to be a ticket out of there, out of any situation. But besides that, it is the manual that still gives you the driving pleasure that no other car can give you. If you do not know how to drive a manual, then go spend 22,000 ringgit on an Axia and buy that new manual transmission that Perodua has introduced. Learn how to drive a manual. It's the best thing that you will ever be able to do for yourself. Anyway, back to the topic. I'm driving the FK8R and engaging with the 6-speed manual through our north-south highway, the traffic of our north-south highway, because I'm driving this thing to Penang tomorrow. I've got an event to attend over there, and I'm really looking forward to it because it's such an amazing machine. I'll get back to you with more. So Penang was a blast. I promised you that I'll speak to you right or during the drive, but it was an intense drive. Why? Simply because when you drive a Type R on Malaysian highways, everybody kind of wants to race you. And some people just simply do not believe that it's a real Type R simply because of the sheer amount of converts on our roads. The other thing is, when they see the Type R, especially all those guys driving a Mercedes AMG, the A45s, the A35s, as well as the Volkswagen Golf GTIs and the Golf Rs, they kind of want to show you who's boss. But this is a proper driver's machine, and the reason why you're seeing a Ducati Hypermotard behind me is because both these vehicles are completely different in nature, yet they share the same thing. They are hooligans in their own respect. The Type R is the kind of car that always wants to keep going, and the thing about the modern FK8R as compared to the FD2R, which I was telling you about earlier, is the FD2R has just one character. It just really wants to always go. At 8,000 RPM, with the 8,000 RPM limit, it was difficult to drive the FD2R slow. With a naturally aspirated engine, most of that power was created between the mid to upper end of the RPM bandwidth. So it was quite impossible to drive that car slow. You always had to ring it up to sort of have fun or even get places fast. If you see a gap in traffic and if you want to close that gap, you didn't have a lot of torque to rely on because a lot of that torque was made on the upper end of the bandwidth. So what you had to do to close that gap was to downshift and close it. Not very difficult when you have a short shifter, but still quite a chore, especially in traffic. This though has three different characters. It has three different driving modes. It has comfort, it has sport, and it has an R mode. So R is when the Type R, the FK8R is at its finest, at its most Type R, so to speak. But besides that, in sport and in comfort, well, you can go about your daily business quite fine. And because it's a turbocharged engine, you have quite a lot of torque to rely upon. So that's actually really nice. The short shift gearbox is beautiful, and I really appreciate the fact that it actually comes with a gear position indicator right now, very much like a superbike. But funny story, I'll tell you without naming names. Many years ago, many years ago, there was a friend of mine that was actually reviewing the FD2R, and because it's such a short shift gearbox, he had accidentally shifted from fifth to first or third to first, something of that sort. And unfortunately, the engine of that blew. That is something that probably will not have happened if the FD2R had a gear position indicator. Now that's why the gear position indicator is so important. You might think like, real men do not need a gear position indicator. Well, when you have a short shift gearbox such as this, it really makes a world of difference, especially on the highways or in traffic when you're kind of cruising along in fifth and you suddenly need to get more power and you're wondering, hey, what gear am I in? Because as compared to a regular long throw gearbox, the short shift gearbox can be actually quite confusing. So yes, a gear position indicator is very important, and I really appreciate that. Besides that though, I really like the fact that it comes with Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, that for long distance journeys it adds the entertainment factor. Not to say that the car by itself is not entertaining, but on the highways and you're cruising along at 120, yeah, that's important. Besides that, what else can I say about the FD2R, FK8R, is the fact that I really appreciate the fact that you can also take your family around. I sent my kid in, I went to BSC with my kid, with him, slapped on the baby seat, and it comes with ISOFIX mounts, and he really liked it. He's like, "Daddy, go faster, Daddy, go faster." So it creates that father and son bond as well. That was really nice. This is what sports cars can do. So My point being, a future classic? Definitely. This is the type of cars that unfortunately are dying, and as car maker prioritize profits, which is normal for any company, as they prioritize profits, as they go on to their save the planet kind of corporate philosophies, cars like the Civic Type R will unfortunately have to go that way as well. Mitsubishi doesn't create the Evos anymore. The Nissan GTR, well, yeah, it's just hanging on by a thread. I wouldn't be surprised if Nissan discontinues that in the next couple of years. So cars like the Type R are timeless. They are the type of car that will connect the EVs to the cars of the 90s and the 2000s and the mid 2000s. So is it a future classic? Most definitely. The FK8R is another car that's going to come quite soon, I hear, and that is going to be the last of the manual Civic Type R's. So I hear. Not quite sure. I hope not. But hey, if you have the money right now and you're looking for a car to invest in, and you're the type that do not like to lose a lot of money, Civic Type R, FK8R. And if you like a motorcycle to match, the Ducati Hypermotard. Both proper hooligans in their own respect. Thank you for watching. I'm Kashi Dylan. This is The Piston Show. Do consider subscribing.